Namaste, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Last week we went over a sequence that consisted of standing postures. The week before we went through the sun salutations. We're building up the foundations for learning how to create your own home practice. So hopefully you've practiced those series at least every day or every other day in the last 2 weeks, and you're starting to memorize what these postures are. So the more that we practice, the more they become ingrained in our practice. And then we can take those and start to incorporate them into a flow. So today we're going to work on seated positions. We're going to start with Surya Namaskars because we want to warm up the body. And then we're going to move into just a few standing postures and then make our way to the mat for seated postures. All right, join me at the top of the mat. Big toes to touch. Look down at the toes and spread them wide as you lift them off the mat, and then place them down one by one. Start to shift your weight until you find that center point over the arches. And then maybe shift from left to right foot until you find a balance point between both feet that feels equal. Lift the kneecaps and slightly drop the tailbone down towards the earth. Shoulders go up towards the ears and then roll down the spine, giving a slight squeeze at the back. Inhale, drop the chin, crown of the head lifts towards the sky. On your next inhale, arms up overhead, maybe looking up at the thumbs. And exhale, hinging from the hips, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. The fingertips can come halfway up the shins. Flat spine here. Exhale, releasing the hands down towards the mat. Reach your feet back for high plank. And we'll go through this once again, but our vinyasa choices here are either bending the elbows back towards the back side of the mat for chaturanga, or we can drop the knees, the chest, and the chin. If you take this vinyasa of choice, you're going to drop the hips and then lift the heart up off the mat, squeezing the shoulder blades together and moving the heart center between the shoulders. Tucking the feet, exhaling, and coming back to downward facing dog. That'll be your vinyasa of choice if that's the one you choose. If you go the chaturanga route, we're going to bend the elbows all the way back, chaturanga. Inhale over the tops of the feet, upward facing dog. Pull the shoulder blades together, move them away from the ears, and move the heart between the shoulders. And then exhaling, rolling over the toes, shifting the hips up and back, downward facing dog. From this point forward, that's how we will phrase that sequence of movements is your vinyasa. Remember, you have the options, and if at any point in time you want to switch it up, say you've been going the chaturanga route and you are starting to feel it really good in your shoulders, then go ahead and do the knees, chest, and chin. On inhale, look between the hands and make your way to the top of the mat, halfway lift, flat spine here. Exhale, allowing yourself to drape over the thighs, forward fold, crown of the head reaches towards the earth. And on inhale, rising all the way up, hands overhead, maybe looking up at the thumbs if your neck permits. And then exhale, closing out the sequence, hands to heart center, Tadasana. Inhale, one breath, one movement, arms up overhead, palms together. Exhale, hinge from the hips, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift, flat spine. Exhale, make your way back, high plank, lowering down through your vinyasa of choice. Inhaling through up dog or baby cobra, and exhaling through down dog. Here in your down dog, tune into your breath. Nice, slow, even inhales and exhales through the nostrils. Maybe you want to bend the right knee and then the left, allowing the hamstrings to loosen up here.
Keep those hips high. Pull the low belly in and up. This is going to create more space for those heels to reach down towards the earth. And then allow the crown of the head to just drop down towards the mat. One more exhale, and then on your inhale, look between the hands. Make your way to the top of the mat for a halfway lift. Fingertips can come up the shins. The big toes are still touching. Exhale, forward fold, surrendering over the thighs. Belly-thigh contact here. So maybe be generous with those knees. Bend them as much as you need to get that belly and thigh integrated towards one another. And then inhale, rising all the way up. Palms together, look up, exhale, hands to heart center, closing out the sequence for Tadasana. One more time, inhale, arms up, look up, and exhale, diving over the thighs, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, making your way back, high plank, lowering down through your vinyasa. Inhaling through up dog or baby cobra. And exhale, downward facing dog. Hips high. Keep reaching those hips high. The energy of the hips are reaching towards the sky, and then the energy of the heels reach down towards the ground. Your heels may not touch, and that's okay. All of these asanas take consistency in our practice. Every day, every other day. Trying to make it non-negotiable. This is self-care time for you. To care for your body, your mind, and your spirit. To tune back into your breath. The movements, the natural movements coming in and out through the body. And just to bring some freedom and space into the joints and the muscles and the bones. On your next inhale, look forward. Make your way to the top of the mat. Halfway lift, flat spine here. And exhale, forward fold. On inhale, rising all the way up. Palms together, look up. Exhale, hands to heart center. Closing out the sequence, Tadasana. Moving into Surya Namaskar B now. Inhale, drop the hips, bend the knees, arms up. Exhale, straightening the legs, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift, flat spine here. Exhale, make your way back, high plank, lowering all the way down through your vinyasa. Inhaling through up dog or baby cobra. And exhaling over the toes, downward facing dog. Rotate the right foot to a 45-degree angle and pull that left foot in between the hands. Bend into the left knee, and on inhale, rise the arms up overhead, palms together. Check in with your hips. We don't want the hips opening out towards the side. We really want to square the hips towards the top of the mat. So pull that right hip forward and push the left hip back. Ground down through the outer edge of that right foot. Bend deep into those hips, allowing gravity to sink the hips low. You may want to look up at the thumbs, putting a small bend to the back here. And then on exhale, look down at the left foot, framing the foot with both hands. Rotate the back toes to face the front of the mat, and then bring that left foot back to meet the right for a high plank. Lowering down through your vinyasa. Inhaling through up dog or baby cobra. And exhaling through downward facing dog. This time, rotating the left foot to a 45-degree angle, pulling the right foot in between the hands. Bend into that right knee, and on inhale, rise up, palms overhead. Left hip pulls forward, right hip pulls back. We're nice and square here. And then allow those hips to just sink down towards the earth. Check in with your knee and make sure the knee is directly over the ankle and not caving on the inside of the knee. We really want to pull that knee back, use the strength of the inner thigh here. And then on your next exhale, look down at that right foot, framing the foot with both hands. Pivot those back toes to face forward, right foot to meet left, high plank. Exhaling down through your vinyasa. Inhaling through up dog or baby cobra. And exhaling downward facing dog. We're going to move through that 2 more times, a little bit quicker. 1 breath, 1 movement. Really get the heat in the body moving here. Take 2 more inhales and exhales. And after your next exhale, look between the hands, make your way to the top of the mat, halfway lift. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, drop the hips, bend the knees, chair pose. Exhale, straighten the legs, hands to heart center, Tadasana. Inhale, drop the hips, bend the knees, arms up. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift, flat spine here. Exhale, making your way back, high plank, lowering down on that exhale through your vinyasa. Inhaling through up dog or baby cobra. And exhaling, downward facing dog. Pivoting the right foot to a 45-degree angle. Pull the left foot in between the hands, bend into that left knee. Inhale the arms all the way up overhead, warrior 1. Square the hips to the top of the mat, ground down through that outer edge of the back foot. Exhale, look down at the left foot, framing it with both hands. Left foot back to meet the right for high plank. Lower down your vinyasa. Inhale, up dog or baby cobra. Exhale, downward facing dog. Left foot 45 degrees, right foot between the hands. Bend into the right knee. On inhale, raise the arms up overhead, sink the hips. Grounding down through that outer edge of the back foot. Exhale, look down at the right foot. Frame it with both hands. Right foot back to meet the left, high plank. Lowering down your vinyasa. Inhale, up dog or baby cobra. Exhale, downward facing dog. Steady the gaze here. Gaze can be up at the navel point or maybe right down in front of your feet about 6 inches. Pull a low belly in and up and push those hips high to the sky as you drive the heels down in towards the mat. 1 more exhale here. And then on your inhale, look between the hands. Make your way to the top of the mat, halfway lift. Exhale, surrendering over the thighs, forward fold. Inhale, drop the hips, bend the knees, arms up, chair pose. Exhale, straighten the legs, hands to heart center, Tadasana. Last time, body should be feeling warm. We should be feeling a little bit more mobility. Inhale, drop the hips, bend the knees, arms up. Exhale, diving over the thighs, straightening the legs, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, make your way back, high plank, lowering down through your vinyasa. Inhaling through up dog or baby cobra. Exhale, over the toes, downward facing dog. Right foot pivots 45 degrees, left foot in between the hands. Bend the left knee. Inhale, rising the arms up overhead, palms to touch. Square everything to the top of the mat. Ground down through the outer edge of the right foot. Bend into that left knee, but don't overextend over the ankle here. Allow gravity to just sink those hips. Feel the dynamic here between the push and pull of the right and left hip to keep everything square. Exhale, look down at the left foot, frame it with both hands. Left foot back to meet the right for high plank, lowering down, chaturanga or knees, chest, and chin. Inhale, up dog or baby cobra. And exhale, downward facing dog. Left foot pivots at a 45-degree angle. Right foot in between the hands. Bend that right knee. Inhaling all the way up, palms overhead. Check in here. Is that left foot grounding down through the outer edge? At the same time, you're pulling that left hip forward. Right hip moves back. You're sinking down into those hips here. One more inhale, and on exhale, look down at the right foot, frame it with both hands. Right foot back to meet the left, lowering down through your vinyasa. Inhaling, upward facing dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. And allowing your breath to be steady here. Finding your drishti point and allowing your gaze to remain calm and still. The more we can calm our physical bodies, the more we can hold still in our physical bodies, the more still and calm our mind becomes. Notice the way the inhales and the exhales are smooth in and out of the nostrils. And then on your next inhale, look forward. Make your way to the top of the mat, halfway lift, flat spine here. And exhaling over the thighs, forward fold. Inhale, drop the hips, bend the knees. Arms up, chair pose. And exhale, closing out the sequence, hands to heart center, straighten the legs. Tadasana. Body should be feeling nice and warm. Let's move into a couple of standing postures now. Swing that left leg back behind you. Land it at a 45-degree angle. The right toes are still pointing forward. Inhale the arms up to a T shape. And exhale, reach that right arm over your right thigh. Keep reaching towards the right side until you can't reach any further. And then placing the hand either on the shin, maybe the ankle, or grabbing the big toe with the peace fingers and the thumb. Inhale that left arm straight up towards the sky. You can either look up at the left hand or out in front of you. Strong line of energy from left fingertips to right fingertips here. Trikonasana or triangle pose. Keep grounding down through the feet. Engage the right quadricep to protect the hamstring here. And then on inhale, use strong legs and strong core to pull yourself all the way back up. Rotate the right toes to point towards the side edge of the mat. Now both toes are kind of pigeon-toed here. We have about 3.5 feet distance between both feet. Arms are still up at a T shape. Puff the heart up on inhale, and then on exhale, start to dive over the legs. Start to hinge from those hips, forward fold, wide leg, forward fold. Placing the hands on the mat, or maybe even on the ankles, the shins, or maybe the top of the thighs, but not on the knees. And allow the crown of the head to move down towards the earth here. It may touch the earth, it may not. The crown of the head may not even look like it's moving towards the earth. But the dynamic here is that we're opening up the inner thighs and the hamstrings. So keep pressing into the feet, engaging the quadriceps. We really want to protect ourselves. And then on inhale, wherever you're at, do a halfway lift. Maybe you're already there. And allow the breath to move in and out through a couple breath cycles. Allowing the blood to come back to other parts of the body so that when we stand, we're not dizzy. And then strong legs, engage everything you got and rise all the way up back to center. Pivot the left foot to face towards the back side of the mat. The right foot should already be at a 45-degree angle, and inhale the arms up to a T shape. Exhale, start to reach out over that left thigh. When you can't reach any further, placing the hand where your practice leads you. Right arm shoots straight up towards the sky, and the gaze can be out in front of you or maybe up at the right fingertips. If someone were to squish us between two walls, we should be able to fit because we're nice and square towards the side of the room. Shoulders are square, hips are square, so that means we might need to pull that right hip back and push the left hip a little bit more under us. One more exhale here, and then on inhale, strengthening everything we have and rising all the way back to center. Arms at a T, pivot the left toes to face the side edge of the mat. One more wide leg forward fold here, so puff the heart up on inhale and exhale.
Hinging from the hips, forward fold, placing the hands where your practice leads you.
Allowing the breath to sink in here, sort of using this as our resting pose here. And then inhale, halfway lift. Taking the exhale here, grounding down through both feet, and on inhale, rising all the way up. Pivoting the right foot to face the top of the mat and stepping with the left to meet the right. Inhale, hands up. Big toes are touching. Exhale, hinging from the hips, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, moving back through plank and your vinyasa, lowering down, inhaling up through up dog or baby cobra, and exhaling over the toes, hips up and back, downward facing dog. Inhale, right leg high. Exhale, that right foot in between the hands. Bend the knee, rising up, high lunge here. Pull that left hip forward, move the right hip back. And on exhale, bring the hands through heart center and start to rotate the torso over towards the right. Maybe catch that left elbow outside the right knee. Sink deep here in the hips and twist over towards the right. Pull the low belly in to allow that twist to become a little bit deeper without torquing on the elbow and the knee, without really putting pressure on any of the spine. The twist is really coming from the core here. And then inhale, release back to center, high lunge. Arms can come overhead, or maybe you prefer your hands on your hips here for a little more stability. And then exhale, framing the right foot with both hands, right foot back to meet left for high plank, lowering down your vinyasa, inhaling through upward facing dog or baby cobra, and exhale, downward facing dog. Inhale the left foot high, and exhale, bring that foot in between the hands, framing the left foot with both hands, bend the left knee, inhale the arms up, stay high up on those back toes, high lunge here. Allow those hips to sink. Right hip pulls forward, left hip pulls back, and on exhale, bringing the hands through heart center and rotating the torso over towards the left now. Maybe catching that right elbow on the left knee. Again, pull that low belly in and up and really allow the twist to come from the core here. On your next inhale, rising back towards center, arms can come up overhead, or maybe for more stability, hands are on the hips. And then exhale, framing the left foot, pulling it back, high plank, lower down through your vinyasa. Inhale, upward facing dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. One cycle of breath. And then on your next inhale, looking between the hands, making your way to the top of the mat, halfway lift. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, bend the knees, drop the hips, and let's sink down into our chair pose here. Hands are overhead, palms are touching. Check in, can you see your toes? Put the weight into the heels and sink the hips a little bit lower here. We're going to do one more twist, so pull the hands into heart center and rotate the torso over towards the right here. Maybe catching that elbow on the outer edge of the right knee. Keep your breath moving. Push your heart in towards your thumbs here. And then on inhale, coming back to center, arms up. Exhale up, hands back through the heart, and rotate over to the left, catching that right elbow on the outer edge of the left knee. 2 cycles of breath. And then on inhale, coming back through center. Make sure the weight is still in the heels, and then exhale, straighten the legs, forward fold. Allow yourself to just embrace this forward fold for a moment. So maybe clasp both elbows. And like a pendulum, swing side to side. Releasing all that chair tension we did. And then coming to some stillness. Inhale, halfway lift. Nice flat spine. Exhale, make your way back. High plank, lowering down through your vinyasa. Inhaling up dog or baby cobra, and exhaling downward facing dog. Now moving into our seated postures, look between the hands and make your way to the top of the mat, but in a seated position. That can look like hopping and setting the feet down like a cross-legged position, or maybe from downward facing dog, that just looks like walking up to the top of the mat, setting the feet down and the bum down on the floor. However you get there, and that's fine. I like to scoot down into the middle of the mat, so maybe adjusting yourself however is necessary for you and pushing the feet out in front of you. We're going to start with Dandasana, which is a staff pose, and it's deceivingly, it looks simple, but it's quite dynamic. So sit up nice and tall, root the tailbone into the earth here. Flex the toes, engaging the calves, the quadriceps, and allowing the spine to be nice and straight here. So roll the shoulders up to the ears and then back down the spine and squeeze them at the back. Palms reach for the ground. The palms may reach the ground, maybe they won't. The toes are still flexed towards the face and everything here is engaged. Sink into this strong feeling, this nice staff feeling, very still, very dynamic for as still as it is, because we're still engaging everything here. The toes are reaching towards the face, the quadriceps are engaged, the palms are reaching down towards the ground or pushing into the ground. Crown of the head reaches to the sky. And then if you had your eyes closed, because this is a really calming pose, go ahead and open them. And then inhale, lift the heart just a little higher, and exhale, start to hinge from those hip points forward. Keep moving the toes towards the heart here. Let's not round into our spine like this. We really want to keep our spine nice and flat and start to move the heart towards the toes as the toes move towards the heart. You can maybe clasp onto the thighs here. And if that's as far as your practice takes you, congratulations, that's wonderful. If you move down to the calves, that's also wonderful. Or maybe the ankles, maybe the feet. Everybody's practice looks different. We really want to keep the energy dynamic moving here though. So keep moving that heart towards those toes. We're not going to sink in here. And wherever you have grabbed, make sure that your shoulders aren't cinching up towards your ears. Move those shoulders down away from the ears. Nice long spine. And then on your next inhale, releasing everything back into staff pose here. Toes are flexed, quads are flexed, calves are flexed, and we're moving those palms down towards the ground. Take one more breath, and then cross the feet and make your way back to downward facing dog, whatever that looks like for you. That could look like a simple hop, hips up and back, or maybe that looks like a little walk, hips up and back. And that's the way we're going to transition from seated pose to seated pose. We can also use that transition for standing pose to seated pose to standing pose. So inhale, look between the hands, make your way to the top of the mat for a seated position, and straighten the legs out in front of you. This time, bending the right knee open so that the inner sole of the right foot presses into the inner thigh of the left leg. Sit up nice and tall, just like staff pose, and exhale, start to hinge forward from the hip points, reaching out over the left thigh. Remember, move those toes towards the heart and move the heart towards the toes. Our goal here is not to get our head down towards the shin. We really want to keep the energy line strong. We want to have integrity in our asana. And we want to feel the benefits of each and every pose. So we're not rushing anything. We're not trying to get to an end point here. We're working on the journey. We're working on the breath, moving us a little deeper. Inhaling, lengthening, and exhaling, allowing us to move slightly more forward, even if that's centimeter by centimeter. Even if it doesn't feel like we're moving forward. Inhale, rising back up. Straighten the right leg out in front of you and bend the left knee, allowing the left insole to come to the right inner thigh. Sit up nice and tall, flex the right toes, push the left heel into the inner thigh, and exhale, hinging from the hips, allowing the heart to move towards the right toes. And just like in all of our other asanas, pull that low belly in and up. That's going to create more space in the pelvis to allow us to fold a little bit deeper. And although we're not trying to look for a deeper like vision of these postures, we're still moving. We're still allowing that energy to open us up, allowing our muscles and our joints to create space so that we can move deeper into ourselves. So we're not necessarily moving deeper into asana, we're moving deeper into what it feels like to be aware. Then on your next inhale, rising back up, crossing the feet, and then making your way back down to downward facing dog, however that looks for you. Maybe it's a hop, maybe it's a step. Downward facing dog here. We're going to do one more seated posture, and then on our next transition, we're going to move through our vinyasa, whether that's chaturanga or knees, chest, and chin, and then up through downward facing dog. So inhale, look between the hands. Make your way to the top of the mat, seated position. This time, bending the left knee and bringing the top of the foot to the mat by the left hip. Sit up nice and tall. And on exhale, start to move forward from those hips, allowing the heart to move towards the right toes. I really love this posture for a calming effect. It's also said to help equal out any imbalances we may have in the lengths of our legs. So if the right leg is a little longer, it should, in theory, balance out to where we can have the left leg be just as long as the right. On inhale, coming back up. Unbend that left knee, straighten the left leg out in front of you, and bend the right knee so that the top of the foot hits the mat and the heel is right by the right hip. Maybe adjusting yourself if needed. Sit up nice and tall and hinge from the hips, moving the heart forward towards the left foot. Remember to keep the toes flexed. We want to keep moving those toes towards our heart as well. If at any point in time you need to take a break in any asana or in any transition that we do, please feel free to take child's pose, just resting the third eye along the mat and sinking the hips down on the heels. Inhale, rising back up. Unhinging from that right knee, crossing the feet and making your way back through high plank this time. So we're just switching this transition up a little bit. We can have a hop down through high plank, or we can walk through high plank. On exhale, moving through your vinyasa, and then inhaling upward facing dog. Exhale, over the toes, hips up and back, downward facing dog. Take one cycle of breath here. And on inhale, look between the hands, make your way to the top of the mat for a seated position. This time, keeping the knees bent and the feet flat on the mat, we're going to move into Navasana or boat pose. So start to tip back onto the tailbone.
Just keeping the knees bent at first, maybe even grabbing underneath of the knees here, and just finding that balance point, playing around with where your balance is on your tailbone. And maybe this is good enough for you, and that's really great. Pull that core in, tighten it, cinch everything into the midline to really engage the muscle activity here. And then releasing the feet back down to the mat. We're going to move into a little more advanced Navasana. If that's enough for you, just keep practicing with that balancing point. So balance onto the tailbone. Keep the spine nice and flat. Crown of the head is reaching towards the ceiling still. And then exhale, allow those legs to either straighten or come to a 90-degree angle. Arms can be out in front of you like this, or maybe you want to still grab a hold of those back thighs. And you can keep straight leg, grabbing a hold of the back thighs, or maybe 90 degrees is enough. But pull that core in, strengthen the core here. Try to get those thighs in as tight as you can towards your stomach here. And if you're shaking, feel into the shakes. Allow yourself to embrace any discomfort that may come up as long as you're not hurting. And then exhale, releasing the feet back down to the mat. Grab a hold of the tops of the shins here and inhale your heart through the knees. Sort of like a seated cat-cow. Exhale, rolling the spine down towards the ground, but not really letting it meet the ground. Inhale, moving your heart between the knees. And exhale, rolling out the spine. We'll do that 2 more times. Inhale the heart between the knees. Exhale, roll out the spine. Last time, inhaling the heart between the knees. And exhale, allowing that spine to really arch back. Coming back to center. Finding our balance point, last boat pose here. Shifting your weight onto the tailbone. Finding where that nice sweet spot is to hold yourself up, and then taking whichever leg position is best for you right now in this moment. Remember to try and keep that spine nice and flat. Keep reaching the heart forward and keep moving those thighs in towards the stomach here. Keep the breath moving nice and steady in and out through the nostrils. 1 more breath cycle. And then releasing down, crossing the feet, planting the hands down and making your way back through high plank, lowering down through chaturanga or knees, chest, and chin. Inhaling upward facing dog or baby cobra. And exhaling over the toes, downward facing dog. One more in breath, 1 more exhale. And then on inhale, look between the hands, make your way to the top of the mat for seated position. Lots of seated poses today, which is really great. I love the seated series. So let's maybe face the side edge of the mat, or not. I just don't have the room at the top of my mat, but let's widen our legs out, just like a wide leg forward fold. Standing, we want to keep our legs nice and wide here, but not so wide that as soon as we start to move forward, our toes start to shift forward. We don't want that. So keep an eye on those toes. They're sneaky and they like to move forward. Toes are pointing up towards the ceiling. There's a slight external rotation in the hips here. Inhale, lift that heart high. Be proud. And then exhale, start to walk the hands forward. Feeling it into the inner thighs, maybe even the hamstrings here. Check in with those toes. Are they still pointing up towards the ceiling? Allow yourself to really sink in here, letting gravity take a hold. Two more breath cycles, in and out. And on your next inhale, walking your hands back up. Again, checking in with the toes, making sure they're still pointing towards the sky. Inhale that left arm up and then over towards the right toes. The right forearm can be on the right thigh or maybe inside of the right inner thigh. Maybe you reach the toes, maybe you don't. Keep those toes flexed. Check in with the left toes. Make sure they're pointing towards the sky here. Side stretch along the left side. Really crunch into that right side body, allowing the left side body to lengthen. You can have your gaze down at the mat, maybe out in front of you. And on your next inhale, allowing the right hand to cradle the head, reach your left arm up and lift the head up with the right hand. A nice little neck release. Go ahead and roll the chin down and across the chest here. We're going to move over into the left side here. So coming back to center, into stillness. Inhale the right arm up overhead and start to reach that right arm over towards the left toes. Again, the forearm of the left hand can either be on the thigh or on the inner thigh. Gaze can be out in front of you or down at the mat. Really allow your neck to release here. And then on your next inhale, really bracing that head with the left fingertips, allowing the right arm to move up towards the sky and lifting the head up with the left hand. Again, just rolling the neck out, the chin along the chest. Getting some length in the side of the neck, the back of the neck. And then coming back to center, closing the legs, crossing them and making your way back through high plank. Lowering down through your vinyasa. Inhale, upward facing dog or baby cobra. And exhale, hips high, downward facing dog. Take a breath cycle here. And on your next inhale, making your way to the top of the mat in a seated position. Bending the right knee and bringing that right foot on the outer edge of the left thigh here. Kind of looks funny, but the foot is outside, the right foot is outside that left thigh. And it can be anywhere. It can be up to the calf. You may want to bring it up to the high thigh, wherever is in your practice actually. So flexing the left toes, inhale the left arm up, and start to rotate the torso over towards the right. You may want to just grab around that right knee, placing the right hand back behind you, and gazing over the right shoulder. Maybe you want to go a little bit deeper, pull that low belly in and up, and twisting from the core, allow that left elbow to come to the outside of the right knee. And then opening that chest up to the side, gazing over the right shoulder. Palm can be open. You may want to shut the fist. Maybe you want to take chin mudra. And then slowly releasing on exhale. Allow that right foot to come out in front of you. And then bending the left knee, bringing the left foot on the outer edge of the right thigh. Sit up nice and tall, pull the little belly in, and then maybe you just want to grab around that left knee with the forearm. Bringing the left hand back behind you, gaze over the left shoulder. Or you might want to bring the right arm up and pull that right elbow on the outer edge of the left knee. Again, gaze over the left shoulder. Moving from the core, pull that belly in and up. And then on exhale, releasing. Left leg comes out in front of you. Placing the hands back behind you. with the fingertips facing towards the front side of the mat. Point the toes. Act like you're going to get those toes down on the ground. They're not going to reach yet, but maybe when we lift our hips. So inhale, and on exhale, lift the hips up towards the sky. Keep them lifting as high as you can get them. Press into the mat with the palms of the hand and press those toes down towards the earth. You may want to drop the head back and cradle it with the shoulders here, opening up the throat. Keep pressing, and then inhale, one more press. Exhale, releasing down to the mat. Cross the legs and make your way back, high plank. Lowering down, chaturanga or knees, chest, and chin. Inhale, up dog or baby cobra. And exhale, downward facing dog. Just take a moment here in your down dog. Maybe walk it out a little bit. Shake the head side to side. And then inhale the right leg high. Exhale, pull the right knee in towards the chest and pivot that shin at a 45-degree angle, placing the top of the foot and then the shin on the mat. We're kind of in this funny pigeon shape here. So stay high up on those left toes and just allow that right hip to rotate open here. And then start to walk the left foot back slightly until you can land down onto the earth. Keep the left hip pulling forward and the right hip pulling back, just like in our lunges or our warriors. We want the hips to stay square to the front of the mat, and then maybe release the back toes down behind you. Stay high on your pigeon here, so the fingertips can be pressing into the earth. Maybe you want to bring the hands onto the foot or the thigh here. Keep the heart moving between the shoulders, whichever position you choose to take. And then start to walk the hands over or forward so that your torso can start to lay down over your shin. Maybe releasing the third eye down to the mat. Taking steady breaths here. Allowing that right hip to rotate externally, to really open up. And then on your next inhale, start to walk yourself back up, back to center, and then put the weight into the right hip here as you lift that left leg up off the mat and swing it up and around facing forward. Bend the left knee and stack the left ankle on top of the right knee. Right ankle should be directly below the left knee. Fire log pose or seated pigeon, double pigeon. Keep the toes flexed to protect the knees. And just sit up nice and tall. You may want to close your eyes here, savoring this hip opener, filling into whatever emotions this hip opener might bring up. When we start to move into opening up our hips, we start to move into deeper rooted patterns that we have held in our bodies for a long period of time. And some things arise that you wouldn't expect on the mat when we start to move into hip openers and heart openers. Some things like sadness, some things like anger, stress, anxiety. And when you start to feel those emotions creep up, tell your breath to go to those places. Tell your breath to bring healing into those places. Take a deep breath in, and then exhale through the mouth. Allowing yourself to release whatever is building. If anything is building, you may not feel anything at all. We each store energy in different parts of our body in different ways because we're individually different. Releasing this pose, crossing the legs, and in whichever way is comfortable or in your practice, make your way back through high plank, lowering down through your vinyasa, inhaling upward facing dog, and exhale downward facing dog. This time exhaling that left leg high, inhale the knee in towards the chest and pivot everything to a 45-degree angle.
Positioning the left top of the foot and then shin on the mat. Stay high up on your toes here. Just allowing that hip to fill this shape at first, and then start to walk those right toes back. Maybe your hips sink down into the ground. Pull that right hip forward and the left hip back. And stay high, either up on your fingertips, or maybe you want to bring the hands to the thigh and the foot. Fill into that left hip opening up. The external rotation, that hip point. One more inhale here, and then on exhale, start to walk your hands forward, releasing your torso over that left shin. You may want to bring the third eye point down to the mat, or maybe stack the fists and just rest your forehead against the fists. You can untuck that back toes and just rest the top of the foot against the mat. Staying here for a couple breath cycles, filling into our hips. Allowing whatever sensations to arise and speaking to them with our breath. On your next inhale, walk the hands back up to center. Shift your weight into the left hip and bring that right leg up and around, stacking the right ankle on top of the left knee. Left knee directly below right knee. Left ankle below right knee? Yeah, I think. Okay. And just allowing the hips to rotate open. Just keep a nice flex to both feet to protect both knees. And just sink in here for a moment, saturating in this asana. Maybe closing the pose, or closing the eyes. We're not closing the pose yet. Just closing the eyes. The hands can be wherever you want. And once again, filling into whatever bubbles up to the top for you. Could be something, could be nothing. Either way, allowing the breath to move in and out through the nostrils. Allowing the breath to move in and out through whatever space you're creating right now. Allowing it to bring healing and depth and understanding. Sometimes healing simply comes through understanding. And through asana, we can have great epiphanies about patterns that we've held on to for so long. With our breath and with our stillness, we can move through those patterns and then start to recognize them outside of our practice, off of the mat, in daily life, in working life. If your eyes were closed, go ahead and open them and start to release the pose. This time just placing the feet flat on the mat, resting the hands back behind you, and maybe windshield wipering the knees side to side here. Allow the chin to drop in towards the heart. And then finding some stillness wherever that may be. Closing the eyes and taking a cycle of breath here, and in and out. And then if your eyes were closed, opening them up and walking yourself into a comfortable seated position. That was some of the seated asanas. There are many more. There are many more poses than anything that I have shown you. But this is just to help you find a starting point. So hopefully you'll be practicing throughout this week. And next week we will move into some more lying down poses, some heart openers, and maybe even more hip openers. And starting to just incorporating everything into a nice steady flow. So I think next week we'll really be moving into more of what a vinyasa flow will really look like, and incorporating all of the poses that we have been doing. Maybe not all of them, but taking from here and there. And that's sort of the point of
these videos is to help you be able to become familiar with different asanas and to be able to transition from one to the other smoothly so that you can have your own home practice. Thank you for practicing with me. Namaste.